Hey y'all, it's Caitlin. So this is the very first episode of my new comic series here on this channel. I'm very excited for it, and hopefully you are too. The people I've told about it so far, my friends here on YouTube, have been really excited for it, so hopefully this goes off well. Usually whenever I post a comic video though, I actually lose a couple subscribers, but the comments I get from it are kind of worth it because the comments are more meaningful on these videos. I don't know why, but yeah, no pressure on you guys who are commenting, but I love them. But anyway, so for the very first episode of this comic series, I really don't even know what I'm calling it yet. I'll figure it out when editing. So the title of this video is the one I decided on. But I'm doing The Movement. Now this is movement number 2. I do have number 1 somewhere, I believe. I either have it, and at one point I wanted to make like an art piece with my number 1s, like put them all in a huge frame together. So I put all my number 1s in a separate stash, and I just haven't fished it out yet. I 86 that plan, by the way. But either it's somewhere still with some of the number 1s that I haven't put back in their piles yet, which I have no idea where it is. It's over here. I didn't lose them. Trust me, I didn't lose them. But there are some of the comic boxes I haven't gone through yet. Or I never had it to begin with, because I remember I had The Movement on digital. I used to read just digital comics before I switched to the physical comic. So either I have it and it's hidden, or I don't own it. I have to check my collection. But here is number 2. I will put an image of the number 1 on the screen now, so you can see if you ever want to check into it. But okay, so a little bit about the book itself first, like where it came from, how it came to be. So it was written by Gail Simone, who is my favorite comic writer. You'll see a lot of her comic books on this series, by the way. And it was illustrated by Freddie Williams II, and it was amazing. It started in 2013, which was when the New 52 started, so this was part of the New 52. And it was meant to be an ongoing series, which it was. It lasted for a year, so we only got 12 issues. So it is closed now. We have the full story. Here's the thing. The people who bought this comic loved it. Loved it. There was literally, the first issue came out, and within like a week of it being out, there were people at cons cosplaying as the characters. That's how fast it took off. However, the people who bought it loved it. There just wasn't enough for DC to continue it. DC loved the story. Again, the readers loved the stories, the characters. Everyone loved them. There just wasn't enough readers to justify putting the money in to keep publishing it. And I think the reason why there wasn't a lot of us was because of the characters inside of it. They just weren't well known. Some of them, this was their very first appearance. Most of them, it was their very first appearance in comic books ever. They were brand new characters, never to be seen before. Unfortunately, never to be seen again at this point, for as far as I know. And of the ones that were reused, they just weren't very popular. Batgirl was in it for a few issues, but I think it was actually after they already announced that it was going to be ending, so other than that, there just wasn't any, popular characters, so people would be like, oh, Batman's in this, oh, Superman's in this, I have to read it. So there just wasn't that kind of reaction to it, and I think that's why it eventually stopped. But it was an amazing series. It had such unique characters in it. Again, most of them were brand new, and it was just really cool. It was a really interesting take on society at the time, and still today, and we're going to get into that now. So the way this is going to go, and the way the series is going to go, I'm going to give you a brief plot of it and a brief summary of all the characters, or all the main characters anyway, and then y'all can choose whether you want to read it or not. So anyway, so The Movement is about a bunch of teenagers, most of them. One of them is a little bit older, but mostly teenagers. They're all kind of like misfits. in, you know, classic superhero way. They're all misfits. And they formed together a team called the Movement. And the Movement is pretty much, they're trying to replace the cops. So it takes place in a place called Coral City. And at the very beginning, you see two cops who are or have sexually harassed a female suspect. And someone took a video on it. It went viral. The kids in the Movement saw the video, eventually ran into the two officers that were in the video and pretty much arrested them themselves. Put them into their lair, which was, I believe, an old clothing factory, if I remember correctly, and pretty much held them in a cell like an actual cop would, arresting them for something that they knew they would never really be charged with, because they're cops, they have power. It was their word. Even though it was on video, nothing was being done with it. People said it was their words against hers, even though there was a video. Hopefully I'm remembering all this correctly. It's been a while. I researched it a little. I actually have my computer here in front of me, but I researched it a little bit to kind of refresh my memory. I promise I've read these books before. But anyway, so they do hold these cops hostage, and pretty much they're trying to tell the Coral City Police Department, hey, we don't like you guys. This part of the town, they had a section area of the city. They said, this is ours. We don't want any cops. We will protect it. We will serve it. Y'all don't come anywhere close to this area. Of course, the cops tried to fight it. They tried to get their men back. Didn't really work with the vigilantes going against them, and frankly just popular opinion, because the public loved them as well. The cops kind of lost that fight. So there is one cop here that is a good guy. He's kind of like the Commissioner Gordon here. His name is Captain Mears. Secondary character, I don't remember, but he does play a huge role in this. I'm not going to go too far into him because he is a secondary character, but let's just say the ending book featured him quite a bit, and it was a very interesting ending that I absolutely loved. But anyway, for the core characters of the group, so it was led by a girl named Virtue, aka Holly Ann Fields, and each of these kids had something in common in the sense that they were kind of outsed of their families, and they sort of formed a family together. With Holly, she had powers of empathy. She could read people's emotions, sometimes even channel those emotions into energy that she could use herself. And her powers made her become sick at a young age. And there was a point where it looked like she had died. And as far as her mom was concerned, she could state it. So Holly was alive, but her mom shipped her off to another family and said that Holly died and never wanted anything to do with her again. Her father, on the other hand, actually ended up committing suicide due to depression. So she did end up she did end up becoming a hero. She even worked for the Justice League for a little bit, and she just ended up becoming a very compassionate human being, even despite that past. She is the leader of this group again, and she protects these kids like they were her family. She is a true leader to them. They all look to her for advice, and also she's gay. There's a lot of LGBTQ in this book, which, again, I am a super big fan of. So I just love it. So she does fall in love with I don't want to say a too popular of a character. It's not like Batwoman or anything, but another character called Rainmaker, which, again, I'm not going to get too much into her, but she is in this book. She does reoccur several times throughout this book. So if you guys were ever a fan of her, you can check her out as well. So I mentioned Tremor in my Pride Month video. Her name is, hang on, Roshana Chartigi. I know I'm butchering it. I know. She is from India, and she had the ability to create the shock waves, which inevitably became earthquakes, hence her name, Tremor. And she had a bit of a difficult past. So when she was a kid, again, she lived in India. Her dad was a farmer, and when people got wind of her powers, they ended up kind of bullying her, name-calling her. And obviously that's not really good for a kid to hear. They end up moving to America, and at one point, when she's a young teenager, she falls into the wrong crowd and ends up in a drunk driving accident. She is the only one that survives. And that kind of leads to a lot of guilt for her, which kind of leads her into Amanda Waller's vision. And so she is connected to Amanda Waller. I'm not going to say too much more about that. But if you guys are DC and you know Amanda Waller, you probably know where it's going already. But that happens at the very beginning of the book, so, or close to the beginning. So I'm not too much of a spoiler-ish there, but a little bit. But you can see there's a little bit of a few layers to Tremor. Other than that, she's like a huge neat freak. She really tries to be there for her friends. She is asexual, like I mentioned there, and I put up a little screenshot of her and Mouse, which I'm getting to right now. So Mouse's name is Jaden Revel, and his backstory was the one I remember the most. I didn't even have to read this thing. Like, I remembered a lot of them, because there was one issue that actually gave us the backstory to a lot of the different characters, a lot of the newer characters. So that was really awesome. I think they were really trying to introduce these characters in a good way to help people, you know, put the word out a little bit more about who these characters were to attract new readers. It didn't work. But anyway, issue 4 does deal with a lot of backstory in most of the characters, not all of them. But for Jaden, or Mouse, we see him as a young baby, an infant, a newborn, and his parents, who are extremely wealthy, put him down in his crib at night. Now, when I say wealthy, I mean so wealthy to the point that they're total snobs. You know, the point where, you know, poor people are trash, rich people are the only good people in the world, that kind of thing. Goes to check on little Jaden while he's asleep, and the mom is horrified to see a whole bunch of rats in her baby's crib. Mouse is born with the ability to talk to and control rodents, specifically rats. And it goes to, as he grows up, he wants to be a rat. He doesn't like people. He doesn't fit in with people. He wished he was born a rat so that he could better fit in with his friends, I guess. Most of his friends are rats, and you see him always dirty. He never takes a bath. They actually have to show him how to shower in one of the issues. Sorry about the air conditioner again. But it's I love it because it's so unique. But anyway, so eventually his parents get fed up with his uncleanliness, his, you know, dealing with the rats, and boots him out on the street. Again, he's like a preteen teenager at this time, and he actually gets taken in by a very poor family who is used to being around rats and very, you know, happy with Mouse in their home. They share what little money they have, what little wealth, you know, food they have with him, and he realized that even though he was brought up to think bad about, you know, poorer people, you know, lower class people, he finds that those are the true good people in the world, mostly. But Mouse is such a down-to-earth character. I love him, and just to seeing him come in on a wave of rats is awesome. It's awesome. I would love to get a pop of him one day. I know that's not where this video is supposed to go, but I really do, because I love him so freaking much. But anyway, So the next character I want to talk about is Catharsis. So Catharsis is also a immigrant from Bengali, I think. I'm probably butchering the name of that country as well. I apologize. But her mother, she and her mother were part of a refugee camp, which they eventually escaped and came to America. When they got to America, she met a police officer. By the way, she has no power. She's not a metahuman. She has mechanical wings that allow her to fly. Other than that, it's just her martial arts skill that puts her through the battle. But anyway, she meets a police officer that is extremely kind to her. You know, very welcoming to her. And as she's growing up, she wants to become a cop, and she does. Once she becomes a cop, however, she sees a cop, or I don't know if she witnesses it, or if she just, you know, knows it happened, murdered a immigrant girl. Kind of like she was. And because of his connections, the cop got off scot-free. Didn't really sit too well with her, so she actually went to him and performed her own justice on him with a knife. So obviously it didn't really look too good to have a police officer, you know, pretty much attempting murder. She wasn't trying to murder him. And I don't think she kills him, but he probably wishes he was dead. But taking the law into her own hands like that just didn't sit well. But also being a police officer and seeing that kind of stuff just was allowed to slip by definitely didn't sit well with her. So she became a vigilante after that. So she's definitely one of the more rugged characters of the show. Kind of like the kick-ass, take names later kind of gal. But you do see her in some soft spots as well. And we saw her originally in the Batgirl comics, where she was I think that's where she originated from, with the Batgirl comics, which wasn't too far before the movement. In fact, I think Gail Simone created her when she was writing Batgirl. So she was one of the ones. Tremor came from Secret Six, wasn't it? I think. I was thinking it was going to be on this wiki page. Yes. She also, by Gail Simone. Gail created like most of these characters. But she was originally in Secret Six. Catharsis was originally in Batgirl. I think Virtue originally appeared in another book as well. I can't. Hang on. Oh, by the way, glancing through this page, it was a suicide by cop that her father did. So, also probably why she doesn't really like cops all that much. I don't see anything, so she might have been one of the original characters for this book. So, I think probably Catharsis and Tremor were the only ones of the main group that were from another book before starting in the movement. But anyway, so going to the next character now, though, we have Burden. Burden, he gets the name because he says that's what he is. It's what he was told that he was. Burden is from an Amish community, a very small town, and at a young age, he got fits, is what they called it. Pretty much unable to control his body in weird ways. Like, it was like he was possessed. And so they thought that's what it was. They thought he was possessed by the devil. Now, they didn't use doctors in his community, so they asked for prayers for him. And when that didn't work, they tied the kid, he was 6 by the way, tied the kid to his bed every single night and whipped him, trying to whip the demon or the devil out of him. Yeah. Anyway, now I'm not saying that's how the Amish community is. I am not saying that whatsoever. I know about the Amish community. I haven't met anyone from the Amish community personally, but I know enough about them to know they're not quite that bad. they're nowhere near that bad. They do have some customs that I think are a little bit strange, but not necessarily bad. So this kind of thing, it's not culture, it's not anything to do with the Amish community. This is just an over-exaggeration to talk about abuse of children that happens in many, many different cultures, including classic American cultures, unfortunately. So, not saying this is something common to see in the Amish community whatsoever. But anyway. But he kept thinking that, well, he's sick, you know, his parents know best, the preacher knows best, so he kind of just went with it, unfortunately, until the night that his powers truly awoken. He has the ability to kind of transform into this demon-like form. Now, this doesn't change who he is. He does become a little bit more out there. He becomes a little bit more confident. Burden is very, very shy. So when he's transformed, he becomes this really outgoing, says what he wants to kind of creature. But it's just part of his powers. He can't really control it yet. And it's not really sure how far his powers actually go. We just know that it changes his form. And not going to talk too much about this because I think it's another one of the most interesting books in the series. But we do see a book where Burden goes back to his community and they meet his brother who has similar abilities, but he has more angelic-like appearance, which is ironic because their personalities are exactly the opposite. His brother acts like the demon. Burden acts like the angel. And again, Burden is gay. He eventually comes out as gay in the book. And honestly, the part where he turns to his parents and goes, "Oh, by the way, I like boys," is actually my favorite part ever. Oh, I love it. But eventually he wasn't really booted out from his community. He pretty much just left because, again, people were calling him a burden. He didn't really want to be that anymore. Plus, he was a little bit tired of all the whipping as well. So he ran away from home. But you do see him going back and settling a few scores, I guess you could say. Finally, the last of the main group is a character called Vengeance Moth. Now, I don't believe it was mentioned in the book, but Gail did mention herself that it was Vengeance Moth was supposed to be, or Drew Fisher, yeah, Drew Fisher was meant to be the niece of Killer Moth. So we have a connection there. But Vengeance Moth does have a power. She can create this big green moth. Now, Drew is in a wheelchair, so she's not that mobile. But when she uses her powers to create that moth, she becomes a lot more mobile. The thing is very, very powerful, and it does allow her to fly. And she's just awesome. She is also a recovering drug abuser, and she's the one that's a little bit older than the rest of them. She's probably in her, like, 20s. But she joined the group because, like most of them, they want to help people. They want to help people in the lower communities, which is the area of the city that they've taken over because the cops don't pretty much give a shit. And also, let me just say, I'm pro-cop. That's not why I like this series, because it's, very anti-cop. And really it's not. At the end of the book, you see that they're not as anti-cop as they thought. But I'm not anti-cop, I'm anti-certain cops. Let me put it that way. But she's the one you see the least of. Vengeance Moth is the one you see the least of in the book, unfortunately. And she's kind of like the guard of the cell where they got the two officers locked up. So you can see where this becomes a very compelling story. You can see so many new characters and so many new backstories, and it's just really, really awesome, and I love it. If I had one wish when it came to this book, it's just that it would have lasted longer, that we would have seen what happened with Tremor, that we would have seen, Virtue and Rainmaker's relationship take place. Maybe Burden gets a boyfriend eventually. It would have been cool to see just just all these different characters develop more, because most of them haven't been seen since. In fact, I can't even remember any of them ever being seen since. And they were such good, well-rounded characters. There just wasn't enough time for them to have any character development happen in this book whatsoever. So if you guys want to check this out, I believe it is available for download on most comic book websites, but you can also back order them on certain sites. I'll probably, if I can find it where you can probably find number 1 on either Midtown or something like that, I'll find a place where you can buy number 1 and link it below. How about that? So, I hope you all enjoy the story, or this video rather. My goal for this is just to pretty much nerd out on comics. I'm shutting my computer off because it's almost low on battery. But just to talk comics a little bit more. I have a YouTube channel, obviously, but I'm not much of a talker, I say as I talk for nearly 30 minutes on this video. But when I go into my comic book shop, I'm kind of shy. In the sense that I pretty much just get my comics, have like a quick conversation with the owners, and leave. And by quick, I mean like a minute. So I don't really talk about comics that often to people who give a damn. So that's one reason why I really wanted to start this series. And even if it just gets 1 view, that's 1 view that's gonna have in the next video too. So I hope to keep this going for a lot longer. I haven't decided what next month is going to be, but I do think I'm going to invite other YouTubers eventually to come over and share some of their favorite comics with y'all as well. So, not over to my house, but, you know, to make a video. It would have been cool to have, hey, just come on over. But no, that doesn't happen, unfortunately. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed. Please let me know your thoughts. Should I go into deeper detail about the plots? Should I go into deeper details about the characters? Should I talk about the secondary characters? Let me know your thoughts on how this episode went, and maybe I can improve it in the future. But anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching, and like always, remember it's a community. Comic, Funko, it doesn't matter. It's always a community and not a competition. I'll see y'all later. Bye.